Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our forum session today. And I'll be the host for today's forum. And my name is Chai Chen, and we'll discuss about the topic of COVID-19. And I'm sure about everyone here had surely known that COVID-19 is the latest topic and issue for the year 2020. And we have known that this virus was originated from China, and we heard the first cases and also the outbreak also from the place of Wuhan in China. And the government of China had set the lockdown for the city since the January of 2020. You can see that this phenomenon was also seen later in other countries, such as other European countries, such as Italy and also British. Um, for our country, Malaysia, we had successfully controlled the first wave of the coronavirus outbreak, which happened early of the February year 2020. However, we have failed to control the second wave after the mass gathering of the religious activity. Thus, the Malaysia's government quickly responded to the second wave of this coronavirus outbreak by implementing the Movement Control Order (MCO) to the whole country for a few months. And from the lockdown, we had known that many issues happened during this lockdown, such as the closure of production sectors and entertainment sectors, which caused many businesses had to face the bankruptcy. From the New Straits Times, you can see that the Chief Minister states that MCO is a necessary move to reduce the negative impacts towards the state's socio-economic development. And besides, we also have found some other resources that states the MCO lockdown is not a necessary statement or a move uh, to control this pandemic, and it stated that it's not a necessary move, which is stated by the minister in the Prime Minister's department, Dato Seri Muhammad Rezwan. So today we'll talk about this COVID-19 lockdown. Is it a solution or a disaster? And we'll look into a few more aspects during this discussion, which are the education aspect, environment aspect, and also health aspects. But first, let me introduce you to our panelists today. For panelist one, we'll have uh, Asma, Madam Asma, who is currently handling, sorry, we are from Group B, Marvel Group. And today we are going to talk about the COVID-19. Is COVID-19 lockdown a solution or disaster? And for our panelists today, we have our first panelist here, Madam Asma, which is currently handling the position of Professor of Science at University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and she already has an experience of 15 years in this sector. She had been also publishing some articles about the education system in Malaysia for about 5 years at New Straits Times, and today she'll be talking about the lockdown effects to this education sector and thus the lockdown helps in this sector. Next, for our second panelist, we'll have Dr. Kaw Chia. She is one of the biological scientists at World Health Organizations, which have been holding this profession for about 10 years straight. She also did some research for the environment, and recently she has already published a book named Environment Lover, which is related to her research. And last but not least, we'll have our third panelist, which is Dr. Shakif. He's a doctor from University Malaya Medical Center, and he's in the specialist of Doctor of Psychiatry. And he have an experience of 13 years in this medical sector. And today he'll be talking about the aspect of health which relates to his profession of being a doctor. Okay, so let's move on with our first question of the day. And I have some question for you, Madam Asma. do you think that the government action to implementing the one control order is a necessary move, and is it good to this society?
Thank you, Mr. Yukwan, as the moderator for our forum today. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning, Abi, to all of you. Thank you for inviting me, and I am so glad to be one of the guests here. We know that the global pandemic has affected lots of sectors in our country, not only for economy, health, but education too. The increasing number of cases every day has forced the government to come up with a solution by impose the movement control order, which is the lockdown. However, for me, as the However, for me, as the professor that actively working in the field of education for the past 15 years, I strongly believe that lockdown is a disaster and not necessarily good for students. This is because the lockdown has resulted to the closures of the entire educational institutes around the country and prevent the students from attending schools or university. Right now, the government has come up with a solution by introducing and implementing online learning. But actually, the online learning has created a huge gap between the underprivileged and the privileged students. Unfortunately, for those underprivileged students, they will most likely to suffer because they will have to face several problems such as unstable internet connections and lack of technology devices. According to the director at Sabah Education Department, she said that 60% of students reported that they have unstable internet connections. Meanwhile, 24 students, including in the urban areas, meanwhile only 24 students, including in urban area, they have a stable internet connections with the computer. So we can conclude that actually the underprivileged students, this lacking will make them left far behind compared to other people. And not only that, this unlucky situation will also lead to the increasing number of inequality for underprivileged students, as they cannot fully enjoy learning process like other students. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Madam Asma. So from your point of statement, we have known that the lockdown will bring more difficulties in teaching, and it's also make the is I mean it is also quite unequal for those students who are suffering from poverty, right? And but I have some more question that does sorry, Madam Asma, uh do you think that during this new norm, and students should continue studying, I mean should continue their physical class during the lockdown period, or does they have to stop studying during this period?
Okay. For me, I think that physical class should be continued as usual. But actually, the student itself, they need to follow the standard operating procedures that already stated by our government. I mean, they need to be extra careful. By at least they need to try to keep their distance, and at the same time they need to keep themselves from involve or getting near any crowded places. And not only that, the educational institutes management, they also need to play their parts. They are responsible to make sure that the students will follow the SOP that stated by the government well.
Okay, thank
Sorry
you.
for interrupt you, Madam Asma. On behalf of your opinions, I have to disagree that lockdown is a disaster because, logically speaking, that learning face to face during these pandemic times is not a choice. Nay, it is a thing that we should avoid to prevent spreading the virus. We do not ask for this catastrophe, nor we blame it. The best thing to do is try to adapt it for a moment to ensure our progress is slowly increasing. Meaning, online learning is the best choice we have and we got. I do understand that underprivileged students who came from poor families and suffer from poverty will most likely face several obstacles, such as unstable internet connections. But to keep moving forward, studies should not be neglected. That's why we need support and funds from our Prime Minister help those who have a hard time processing online learning. Uh,
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry to interrupt. Also, I disagree about the opinion that lockdown destroyed the education of our country. Also, it is our country first try on online teaching, and all of us have no experience in it. We are trying to improve. Like as I know, there are some telecom services are providing free devices and data for underprivileged students who come from poor families. There are also positive impacts of e-learning. As we know, traditional education generally involves the time to get back and forth to classes, and plus the time we spend waiting for tutors and other students. Besides, online learning is certainly the most effective way for students, but it's also better for environment. It saves more paper, and traditional education is also one of the main reasons of the logging activities.
okay, so based on what Dr. Sakif said, I know that I mean like everyone need to adapt with the new situation, with the new norms of life. And online learning has become the only way to provide the continuous education to the students due to the lockdown. However, the drawbacks of online learning are too obvious, and online learning are literally affecting the students' performance, where their future is at the stake right now. We also cannot predict. I mean, how long the COVID-19 will be fully disappear from our country. That's mean I think that this is a very right time for the government to come up with the solution. I mean by ending the lockdown and let the student to attend the schools or university. Physical classes is not impossible as long as the student can follow the SOP well. And also for the Dr. Koh Chiji statement, said that there are some telecom services that offer free internet plan for underprivileged that come from the poor family. But like I mentioned earlier, the director at Sabah Education Department, she said that many students in Sabah reported that they lack of technology devices, making them need to share handphones with their parents just to join online classes. And not only that, only a small number of families, including in the urban area, have personal technology devices such as computers and smartphone. So I mean with the crisis of economy right now due to the pandemic, we cannot expect that these telecom services will offer the free internet plan for students, because that's really required a lot of money. Okay, so yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your response, Madam Asma, and that's a great discussion. Okay, thank you for the discussion, and we'll now move on to the next question. I have some more questions for Dr. Kaur. Since that you are a biological scientist, I have a question about regarding to the environment. Do you think how how is your opinion about this lockdown to does it help to the environment?
Thank you, Mr. Chua. Good morning, everyone. There are positive parts during lockdown period. There's an increasing quality of air due to the reduction of air pollution and greenhouse gases emissions. We started in home environment during outbreak. So due to the close down of industries and factories, which really helped to combat global climate change, it was estimated that nearly 50% reduction of nitrous oxide and carbon monoxide due to the shutdown of heavy industries in China. So besides, lockdown also reduces the water pollution in some of the developing countries, such as India. So the major industrial sources of pollution in India have completely stopped. So it's really helped to reduce the pollution load. It is found that among 36 real-time monitoring stations, Rio Ganga in India, water from 27 stations met the permissible limit. So during lockdown, The elevation of sound also has been reduced. Noise level in Delhi, the capital of India, is reduced drastically around 40 to 50%. And such a wide outbreak of pandemic, of course, have environmentally destructive effects. One of these is medical waste resulting from the increased medical activity. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, the production and the use of plastic based on the personal protective equipment, which is known as PPE, has increased worldwide. However, due to the lack of knowledge about the infectious waste management, most people dump these face masks and hand gloves in open places, and in some cases they throw it with household waste, which is really wrong. And when the outbreak peaked in Wuhan, an average of 240 tons of medical waste was produced daily in hospitals, and um, it was 6 times higher than normal value. So besides, we consume more electricity in at home and produce more garbage. But due to the pandemic, the recycling activities are forced to stop, and we cannot do any activities of it. And the reason of the garbage produced is because many countries have led to an increase in the demand of online shopping from cheap packaged materials, and we can't do anything to continue the recycling activities as we want to reduce the transmission of viral infections. So overall, I don't really hold an opinion, either agree or disagree with the COVID-19 lockdown. Both positive and negative impacts of COVID-19 lockdown are present.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Dr. Kaur. So, from your statement of view, for the effect of lockdown to the environment, I know I've heard that you stated both advantage and disadvantage of this lockdown that brings to the environment. Uh, but in other words of that, I have some questions like, do you think that this uh, environment needs our existence as a human in order to maintain its original form or preventing it from pollution?
Definitely yes. Environment needs human assistance not just to maintain its original form, but also to recover to its original form. We treat the planet really bad, and this need our help urgently to stop making it worse. Sustainable land management can contribute to reducing the negative impacts of multiple stresses, including climate change on ecosystems and societies. So at home, you can help the planet by recycling waste and growing plants or vegetables. The easiest thing you can do at home is to save electricity and water. Just do something. Action is important.
Sorry for interrupting you, Dr. Ko. Regarding the question you have just mentioned before, I do think that lockdown does help the environment, because we all eventually stay at home and not doing activities or working outside. The environment, or I would say Mother Nature, does heal itself. As a proof, I can say that on April 27, the year 2020, a news from the Star stated that the clean break for Klang Valley rivers, what it meant was the river are slowly cleaning itself from the human waste, and I can deduct that the river is having a healing effect that makes the water looks clearer than before.
uh, I also would like to give my opinion. Dr. Ko said that the lockdown helped to reduce the pollution. But actually for me, for the long time effect, actually the lockdown is not that helpful to reduce the pollution that causes by human. This is because even when the even when the lockdown is lifted, people still can do damage to the environment. They still can do the open burning. They still can continue with the deforestation and etc. So that's why I think if we really want to curb these environmental pollution problems, I think the people itself, they need to have awareness. They need to discipline themselves, and they need to realize that all the bad actions that they did to the environment will damage the quality of our environment in our country. So yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I understand both Dr. Sakif and Dr. Asma opinions. However, climate change and pollution is still on no matter what happens with COVID-19. Even during lockdown, we keep on using plastic and produce waste. And most of the trash we produce is just simply thrown into the ocean. So the question is, what can we do to minimize our damage towards the environment? As I said just now, environment needs human assistance to heal the planet. Developing and enabling access to cleaner energy sources is one such solution. There will be no silver bullets to solve this man-made crisis, but there is hope in that. So by acting fast at all levels of society, we will be able to scale back at least part of the unfolding disaster.
Okay, thank you for the discussion among panelists. For my opinion, I think Dr. Shakif pointed out a good point on the recovery of the environment by itself. I've also seen some news reported by the media. They have stated that the Malacca River also recovered quite in a rapid way. Since the MCO lockdown, they have found out that the Malacca River have become more crystal clear than before. So it's part of the example that the environment can recover itself during the MCO lockdown period. But in other way, the Dr. Hasma also point out a good point that the human is the main source of the main reason of why the pollution will happen. So actually it's quite true, since that the reason cases like pollution of the rivers of Selangor, we can see that it's also a human, I mean a mankind action that makes the pollution of the river, uh, which caused the disruption of the water supply of the people in Selangor. So it's quite important that we have to solve the problem of the human. I mean, the human activity we have to solve the human activities. I mean, that's the main reason of the pollution. So we have to solve that first, uh, rather than preserve it, like do the action after the pollution has been done. So thank you for the discussion, and we'll now move on to the next question. And for okay, now we'll move on to our third panelist, Dr. Shakif. I have some question for you,
Yeah,
and
sure.
give your opinion as a doctor. Do you think that this lockdown is good for the people, and does it helps for the health for these people?
Thank you for a good and straight question from our moderator. In my opinion, I do agree that lockdown during COVID-19 is necessary for society. In these crucial times, we all do need to assess the potential role of preventive actions or strategies to suppress transmission of the virus by slowing down the growth rate of cases and easily reduce the occurrence of cases. According to Samika Ruby, 2020, the result has been shown that efficiency and quality of domestic lockdown to minimize cases, giving people joy. Whether we like it or not about being locked down, it is for the sake of health and safety to keep world a better place. In March 2020, where the first lockdown was governed by the Prime Minister, and we did saw that there's a decrease in cases month by month. This tragedy is one of the proofs that lockdown is necessary to all of us. Plus, less crime action happen in these times due to the effectiveness of lockdown. As stated by Rob Morley, 2020, people spend longer at home, making their homes more secure from burglars and more capable of being guardians of neighbors' houses. As a consequence, people should not be more worried. And I do expect that the country lockdown would affect the pandemic, provided the containment measures continue to be adhered. These behaviors must continue for as long as possible throughout the epidemic. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Dr. Shakif. From your statement, I can hear that you stated that the number of cases do drop after the MCO movement control order have been implemented to the whole country. Uh, so I also agree with your point of view that this movement control order can reduce numbers, since that we can see uh, the MCO, the numbers that the number of cases are quite reducing since the MCO implemented, like for the months of uh, May until the month of August. So thank you, Dr.
Uh,
Shakti.
I am sorry for interrupting, Mr. Moderator. Regarding on what Dr. Saki said, I understand that the government main priority right now is to reducing the number of cases and to like to preserve. Like the government really care about the health issue of for Malaysian people, but actually, because of the lockdown, this lockdown has led to the increasing number of the domestic violences that happen in our country. According to the Women Aid Organization, the number that before when the lockdown began, there is an increasing number of the increasing number of hotline calls per day compared to the before the lockdown. So I think that I can conclude that actually the lockdown has influenced the people to be violent and make the people to become abusers because of the financial crisis as they cannot go to work. So that's why I think that this issue cannot be ignored by the government, and the government should find the solution as soon as possible by ending the lockdown and let those people to go work. Okay. So
Regarding to Madam Asma's opposition, these types of complications that you just stated are focusing more on mental health as they can control their emotions. As a result, they abuse their spouse or their child. The government does understand the financial status is a vital issue that they need to work on. A piece of advice that would help to cool down the current difficulty is thus abuse will solve the problems. No, it is not. Remember your loved one, they did not ask to be abused, and the government will try their best to give what's best for their people.
Um,
Yes.
I think I do agree that lockdown is necessary to all of us after listening to Dr. Saki's opinion. Um, I think no matter what, our human life is the most important thing, and we need quarantine to prevent the viral infection. And this is the most effective way currently to stop the virus from spreading. However, as I said just now, it brings negative impacts to environment undoubtedly. The household waste and energy waste can cause big problems too. So what can we do is to cope with it, such as reuse plastics and save electricity. There's always a way to maintain the balance between the environment and the human and also the society. So we are the creatures of habit, and changing our behavior takes some time. Small steps are the key to make our planet better.
Oh, sorry. Eventually, we're on the same boat, Dr. Koh, and thank you for your concern towards my stance.
Okay. For my opinion, I think that this lockdown does actually help for the first wave, for the second wave of this pandemic. But actually, there's some point I want to point out that this lockdown is something necessary for the for the initial stage of the pandemic, but we can see that the numbers have already dropped and people are actually quite following the SOPs, and there are actually no big cases for the period of about May to October August. So we are I can see that actually the big problem for us is the mass gathering. Uh, our second wave of pandemic also caused by the mass gathering, and for the condition now, we can see that it's because of the Sabah's election. So our government also just announced that they have confirmed that the third wave is also being caused by the Sabah's election. which means that Sabah election is the main causes of this third wave. So actually, for my opinion, lockdown is necessary for reducing the number of cases, but actually the more important will be the following of the SOPs, and the government should also be prepared for the elections properties such as we can use it to mail the votes like how the Singaporeans or how the Americans do it. It doesn't need to attend physically for voting. Maybe will be that's my suggestion for the government's action if they want to do some mass gatherings activities. So thank you for that discussion, and we have come to the end of our forum today. So I've from this discussion that we can see there's a couple of effects from the lockdown that can bring to our education aspects, environmental aspects, and also the health aspects. But unfortunately, we still can't conclude that this lockdown is good or bad for us because we can there because it brings both for us for the society. But one thing we can know that this pandemic was not going to be forever, and this pandemic will end one day. We should cooperate with the government as the lockdown MCO 2.0 now. We should also cooperate with the government since they have the move to control this pandemic. So we have also have to follow the government's standard operating procedure to make our country is safer than from the COVID-19, like the condition of the country Taiwan. And stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. And I thank you for having your time with us here. And I hope you to have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank